On the 631st day of the war in Ukraine, the fighting was concentrated in these areas. In Vremivka front, after the relocation of the Ukrainian Marines to the Dnipro region, the Russian army tried to take advantage of the temporary weakness of the Ukrainian defenses and launched a series of armored assaults against the Ukrainian forces, aiming to regain the ground they lost during Ukraine's summer offensive. Today, Ukrainian sources published a video from the 58th Motorized Brigade of the Ukrainian army, where a Russian armored convoy led by a T-72 tank and followed by at least 2 Russian BMP infantry fighting vehicles were seen moving forward to the Ukrainian positions less than 2 kilometers southwest of Novodonetsk. On the video, one of the Russian armored vehicles gets hit by Ukrainian artillery fire, and right after, a few dozen Russian soldiers are seen trying to run away from the battlefield. At this moment, a Ukrainian tank from the 58th Brigade arrives on the battlefield and starts opening fire over the Russian convoy, suppressing the Russian forces and not allowing them to move forward as the Ukrainian artillery continues to work over them. The Ukrainian tank deploys a smoke screen in front and continues to pound the Russian convoy. Soon after, it seems that a leading Russian tank also gets hit and destroyed, and the rest of the Russian soldiers start to run away, but to no avail as the Ukrainian artillery fires upon them, destroying almost the entire infantry force. By the end of the video, a Ukrainian armored personnel carrier arrives to clear the tree-line positions, and Ukrainian soldiers are seen taking the remaining Russian troops as prisoners of war. 2 days ago, the Russian forces made another attempt to advance in this area when they attacked the Ukrainian positions with another mechanized unit made up of at least 1 tank and 3 armored vehicles, as well as dozens of infantry forces. However, according to reports from sources on both sides, the Russian attempt ended up in a disaster, and as acknowledged by Russian sources, the entire armored unit was destroyed, with Russian forces also suffering dozens of casualties as a result of the massive shelling conducted by the Ukrainian artillery. In Donetsk front, heavy battles continue in the Avdiivka sector. After advancing for about 2 square kilometers northwest of Stepove, Russian forces made new attempts to push towards Stepove and the chemical plant, using waves of small infantry forces to attack the Ukrainian positions. Despite the claims made by some pro-Russian sources about the village of Stepove coming under the control of the Russian army, so far there is no evidence and no geolocated footage to confirm their declarations. From what we can see so far by the footage published on Russian and Ukrainian Telegram channels, it seems that the Ukrainian forces continue to use a lot of FPV drones to strike the Russian forces on this part of the front line, not allowing Russians to gather a large enough infantry force for a powerful attack towards the Ukrainian positions. The Russian army also tried to enter inside the chemical plant, but even in this direction, Russian soldiers were met by the FPV drones of the 47th Mechanized Brigade, which again decimated the Russian forces right before they got a chance to storm the Ukrainian stronghold. Russian soldiers on the ground are complaining about the massive scale of the casualties that they are suffering as a result of these constant meat assaults, which are conducted without any proper armored support. According to them, the battles near the chemical plant are fierce, but the Russians are taking much more casualties than the Ukrainian forces. Apart from the frequent counterattacks on the northern flank of the Russian army near Horlivka, which served the purpose of driving a part of the Russian forces away from Avdiivka, it seems that recently the Ukrainian command decided to activate their forces on the quiet front of Horlivka. According to reports from sources on both sides, the Ukrainian forces launched a sudden attack and captured an area between the waste heaps on the western outskirts of Horlivka. For the first time, the Ukrainian forces moved past a line which had remained unchanged since 2016, and the strong activity of the Ukrainian army in this direction may force the Russians to deploy here a part of their forces that they intend to use in the Avdiivka offensive. Friends, if you like my daily updates, I kindly ask you to hit the like and subscribe buttons, as this will greatly help the channel to reach a wider audience. That's all for today's update. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, and have a great day.